Hello, it's Emma Jo here from Lavinia Stamps, and in this video I will be doing part 1 of the March journal. March became quite busy, didn't it, with a lot of other things going on like Easter. And I didn't want you to miss out on any Easter crafts. So my friends, we have split the journal into 2 parts so that, because there's a different technique in here that perhaps you haven't seen before, that you will get to see it in a little less sped up version. Okay, so that's part 1, but let me show you where we've got to in part 1. Are you ready? Here we go. So that's where we've got to in part 1. It's much better without my face in it. Hello. So part 1 sees us with a little bit of a pop-up tree and a whole load of silver birches and a fair bit of ripping. It's great fun. Come with me and let me show you how it's done. Right, here we go. We're going to start by making trees. And for this, you're going to need 1 piece of A4 multifarious card, white, and we're going to try and create something like what I was just showing you there. So I've got some acrylic paint, and I've got 2 colours because although I want it to look black, if you put straight black on, it doesn't give it as much of a depth, and it looks quite harsh. So I've got a cyan blue and a burnt sienna, and I'm just putting them on neat. I'm not worrying about mixing the 2 colours. I'm putting a little bit of brown here, a little bit of blue there, and it'll all come out in the wash. In other words, it doesn't really matter, but just that subtle edge will make all the difference. So I'm just slathering it on with my watercolour brush from set 2, one of the larger ones. Adding a little bit of water to make sure that we get some sort of ease of movement with the paint. And it doesn't have to be perfect, okay? And once you've got it all covered, then, and as smooth as possible, use your Ranger heat tool or whatever heat tool you have just to take the edge off it, off the drying time. And once it's dry, we're going to use this Crackle Glaze medium. Same watercolour brush, and because it does actually wash out really well with water, and I'm just going to use that and slather it over the top of my rather perfectly looking covered acrylic paint on my multifarious card. So what we're doing is we're creating a, if you like, a resist. So whatever we put on top of this, it's going to split. It's not going to merge in. And you can see I'm taking some of the edge off the drying time with the heat tool again there. So when I'm going to make the bark now with the top coat, which is gesso, don't do this unless that Crackle Glaze is dry, okay? Same brush again, and I'm going in the opposite direction to the paint that I put on originally, on the darker paint, okay? And I'm just going to slather that on. It doesn't need to look pretty because, believe you me, it's not going to by the end of it. It will split, which is what we want it to do. It's the crackle that we're after. So by the time I get to the end of this, you'll start to see some splitting already happening, which is rather magic. Can you see at the bottom there? It's starting to move. There you go. That's lovely. I mean, you can go over it in places if you want to, but just try not to let it get too lumpy bumpy. And just give it a little bit of a helping hand with your heat tool, but don't expect it to be completely dry with that. You'll have to leave it alone for a bit, I'm afraid, and try this thing called patience, which I really don't have. In the meantime, though, grab a piece of 7x7 multifarious card, your Zia stamp, an acrylic block, and some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, ink up Zia, and stamp her onto this rather lovely clean piece of paper. Press down, making sure to catch in the middle as well, and let the ink do its magic. And there we go, there she is. Decorative tape. Now, I've just picked this up because I want to create a sort of halo around the top of her head. Why, you ask? Well, here's cog set 1 to show you why. I'm going to turn her into the most enchanting tree, made up of cogs and natural, lovely things. So this is from cog set 3. And that one was the same. No, cog set 2. But basically, suffice it to say, if you've got the 3 cog sets, you can mix and match and pop this in wherever you want. But as I'm doing this, I'm thinking she looks like she's got a Georgian puff wig on, which is rather lovely. Maybe one for a card or something. So just all you're doing is filling in that circle that we've made with the decorative tape. Give her a little bit, almost like earrings below her ears. That's the small roses from the rose set. And then another small cog from cog set 3. Just fill in those gaps. And I suppose you'll be thinking, how is this a tree? Emma Jo, how is this a tree? Well, I'm asking you to use your imagination here, folks. And trust me, because by the end of this, she'll be a tree. Okay, VersaFine Clair Verdant, and I'm using the Dotty stamp from the flower collection. And it just adds a lovely softness that implies it's green, which is lovely. And now we've got the mini leaf creeper, again with our verdant, and I'm just going to stop those edges from looking quite so mechanical and man-made. And it looks rather like me getting out of bed in the morning. Scruffy and in need of a complete makeover. There we go. So you see the leaf creeper I did down her neck? That gives the impression of a hair, more hair coming down there. It just gives a nice frame, and that's what we'd like. Now we're going in with slightly darker VersaFine Clair Shady Lane. Again, the flower collection, but this one is a more solid flower, almost like a magnolia. The idea with this is that it breaks up that solid shape and gives us some depth. Okay, so I'm going to use some Elements Ink Sundance and a size 9 stencil brush. And just give it a little bit of touch of colour here and there. So we're going to look at the background now. Again, going in with that Sundance, lovely colour. And starting in the middle with my size 9 stencil brush and just basically giving it a gentle yellow across both colours, pages even. And then we're going to add in a little bit of green, but for the time being we're just working on the brightest or darkest bit being the centre, and a gentle yellow for the rest of it. Adding some Elements Ink green sleeves just in places, and excuse me, and some Elements Ink pine. Planting the Enchanting Tree. So that's what we've called Zia. So I'm using 7x7 coloured card, the pastels pack, and I've just chosen the cream one that's got a lovely sheen on it. folded it in half, given myself a good edge because I've got this metal ruler to do that with. And then I'm going to aim somewhere in the middle of that. And using my craft mat to give me a bit of a helping hand, I'm going to do 4 centimetre long by 2 centimetre wide rectangle. Now we're only going to cut down the outside lines. We're not going to cut that top one at all, but we still want it there. Okay, so get as close as you can to the edge of that, or the top of that line, and the same there. Fabulous. And then pop your ruler at the end and fold your cutout back onto it to give yourself a good sharp edge. Then open your card up, because that's really what it should be like, and close it with your cutout now on the inside. And just use your ruler to sharpen those edges a bit. So that's how we're going to do the pop-up. It's not too pop-uppery. Can't actually think of the word. Made one up. But it's just enough to give us an extra dimension to what's going on. So that cream card that we're going to put the enchanting tree on, we're going to put some Sundance on so that it sort of will melt back into the background that we've already done on the journal. But this card, because it's just that little bit stronger, will be the perfect base for our pop-up to sit on. Our pop-up to sit on. Right, bippity-boppity glue, fab glue for this. If you glue the right-hand edge of that sticking out bit and just fold it over so that your enchanting tree sits on it, then glue both sides of that card into the centre, and you should be fab with a little pop-up there. Making the forest, now we're going to be cutting strips of that Crackle glaze paper that we made, and I'm aiming for wider trees to be at the front. Just look at that, it's so effective. And how much work did we have to do? Not that much. There we go. And then slowly getting more and more narrower and just staggering them up behind each other so that we get this lovely crescent shape, as if to say, look at this enchanting tree in the middle, pointing to where the focus is. Now on some of these I have already tried out using with Shady Lane the Flower Collection Dotty one stamp, and I've just gone up the side of one of those boughs. I think it's the third one in from the right, and it just looks great. It's like subtle shading, but it could also be moss. I love it. So just add your bippity-boppity glue and gradually go over that card. Now the trick with this is to make sure what happens on the right sort of happens on the left as well. And we then want to get some strips and make sure that Zia has those strips behind her as well. Yeah? So that the forest is still behind her. There we go. And now we're going to get some Dreamscape papers and do some ripping. Just rip a sort of hillock type shape, so a semicircular, and just stick it over Zia's shoulders. Because she is no longer Zia, she is now the enchanting tree. And if you rip up some various bits and pieces of that green, you can create a lovely forest floor, or at least the basis for one. Because we are going to be adding more to this in part 2. So we've gone for the blue one now, and I'm just really going for almost semicircular shapes. You see that writing? That writing's beautiful. Flourish, nurture, beginning, awakening. It's just wonderful words that just add to this scene. And my friends, that is part 1 completed. Now that we've stuck those blues down, you've done it. Well done. I really enjoyed making these books with you. And I can't wait to do the next step, because the next step is going to be delicious. It's going to be adding all those little finishing touches, and there's lots of them, but they're going to be the sort of thing that you might have already done. Not all of them, some of them you've already done in a previous video, so that you should feel a little bit more relaxed about them. But we're going to bring this to life with glitter, glitz and glam. Can't wait to see you for part 2 of the March journal page. Anyway, thank you very much for coming along and having a go with me today. I look forward to seeing you in part 2. If you've got any comments you'd like to make about this craft, please pop them in the post below, and I will do my very best to get back in touch with you as soon as I possibly can. But in the meantime, happy crafting. See you soon. Bye.